Hey guys, Mr. Jubai here with Chapter 1, Section 2, Video Lecture Number 3. It's all over experimental technique, which is on page 12 of your CPO Physical Science Textbook. Now, just to do a little review of stuff we've talked about already, is that anytime you do an experiment, you only want to change one variable at a time. Now remember, variables are those things that we can change during an experiment. And during any experiment, like I just said, you just only change one thing at a time. That's why we call it a controlled experiment. If we look back to the lab, once we figured out what was wrong with the first experiment we did, we decided to change the angle of the ramp. That was our experimental variable. All of those other 6 variables, remember, those are our controlled variables. And while you run your experiment, the thing you should be doing is collecting information. That information can be descriptive, what we call qualitative, or it can be quantitative, things that we actually measure with numbers. Now, each time you run your experiment, it's called a trial. Hopefully you've been taught, elementary or even junior high, that every time you run an experiment, you should run a bare minimum of 3 trials. Usually, the more time you run that experiment, the more reliable your data is. Now, experimental technique, what that really is just how we do our experiment. Take, for instance, when we release the car on the hill, are you releasing it the same way every time? Are you holding that car the same? Maybe you put the tip of your finger on that wing nut, and the same person lets it go each time. Say you just lift your finger up every time. And out of the 10 times you might do it, maybe 8 of those times you lift your finger straight up. But let's say you're not paying attention, and maybe twice, your finger just drags along that wing nut a little bit, adding a little bit friction. So what that would do is, since it's adding friction, it slows down the car a little bit. What you want to do is, when you're doing your experiment, be as detail-oriented as possible. Pay attention to every little detail. The same person should release that car the same way every time. Now, what we do when we develop a good experimental technique, we really do ensure that the results that we come up are accurate to what we're saying they are. Now, this next thing, procedures, you've heard me mention that word a lot, over the last week or so. Procedures are really just a collection of all the techniques, or the steps that you use to carry out your experiment. Now, the thing that you want to make sure here is that you are as detailed as possible. Every little step, write it out. Don't assume that somebody's going to understand what you're talking about, in just 1 or 2 sentences. Give them as much detail as possible. Now, why do we do that? Remember, it's important that other scientists are able to follow our procedures and get the same or at least similar results. This is really what you guys do for each experiment. You follow those procedures that I give you, and I try to give you detailed procedures. And don't forget, the results that we get should be repeatable. Not by just other people in your little lab group, but if other people come, from outside of our lab or outside of your class and do follow your instructions, they should be able to get similar results than what you got. If they can do that, then your experiment, you're experimental technique, your procedures, they're all good. They're all reliable. I don't want you guys to forget that if you still need help with material from the textbook, okay, or from the video lectures, come and see me and talk to me, guys. Okay, the best time is Mondays and Thursdays after school when I have detentions, but you can always come in before school, just about any day of the week. As long as you let me know a day ahead, I'll make sure I'm there. As soon as they let you in the building, you could come on back. But that's only if you have, like, or need a lot of help. If you just have real quick questions, hey, ask me right before class or after class, or maybe during a transition or something in between activities in class. And just as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video.